Londres.
The city where I grew up was ringed by shanty towns. Lima in the 1970s was surrounded on the slopes of every surrounding hill by sprawling slums, barriadas they were called, las barriadas de Lima. Now often we would have visitors from Europe, from Britain, from the US, and they would do the usual tourist thing in Peru. They'd come to Lima, then they'd go to Cusco and they'd do the Inca Trail, they'd go to visit Machu Picchu, and they'd come back. And almost always they would ask the same question. Why do people leave the clean villages, the pure Andean air, and come down to Lima and live in these sprawling shanty towns? That's a very first world question. No Peruvian ever needed to ask why somebody would want to leave a village where there was no electricity, no water, no clinic, no school, and no work. The point that is missed to this day by Western observers of developing countries is that slums, industrialization are fundamentally transitional. They're a phase to something else, the same phase that our own ancestors went through in this part of the world. Much later in life, I had occasion to spend a bit of time in one of the barriadas. And although there was certainly physical deprivation there was also a sense of enterprise and optimism and industriousness. Everyone was busily doing something. They were sorting through rubbish and selling things for recycling. They were selling cigarettes at traffic lights. People had a sense that they were on their way to somewhere else. Frankly, I've seen high unemployment black spots in Europe, where there is less of a sense of optimism than in the barriadas in the third world. A lot of the way in which we approach development is fundamentally aesthetic. The great Victorian novelist Anthony Trollope said, poverty, to be scenic, should be rural. When we fill our documentaries and our children's textbooks with the idea that there is something intrinsically wrong with Western companies opening factories in poor countries and with people working long hours in poor conditions, we deny agency to those workers. We assume that they cannot possibly have made a rational decision to leave behind a life of back-breaking toil in the fields in order to come and enjoy higher salaries and more opportunity working for a foreign-owned company. If we really want to help countries that have a low level of GDP to catch up to the developed world, what do? We buy their stuff. We give them the opportunities that our own ancestors at a similar stage of development took for granted. The surest way to eliminate poverty in the world is through freer trade.